Listen to this thing by Maynard James Keenan once, the guy from Tool, and he explained himself as like a reactive artist. Like he's not like really creative, he's very reactive, meaning like if you give him like something, he can do something with it, but he's pretty bad at like creating ideas from scratch. And I would say I'm kind of the same. So what I react to is just things that I make the computer do. So I like set up some sort of like sound design system, like a giant chain of effects that like acts kind of like a Rube Goldberg machine, like maybe you'll have like a one shot that goes into like a reverb, and then that reverb gets sent through like some wave shaper, and then the wave shaper like, glitches it out, and then the glitchy stuff gets like, rearranged by some weird plugin, and then like I'll set up some shit like that, and then I'll just run tons of shit through it and just see what comes out. It's kind of like the same thing that Mick Gordon did with the Doom soundtrack. He just set up like some crazy instrument out of like guitar effects and hardware and just started running sine waves through it.
Oh yeah.
So I do that kind of stuff a lot. And then whatever comes out the other end, I'm like, oh, that gives me an idea, But it's like,
right.
In that sense, like I don't even really believe that I had the idea, like I just set a thing up, pressed a button, and then it gave me an idea.
Yeah, I love that, because I have, I've been able to speak with a lot of different people on this topic, and at times that same idea is expressed where people feel like they are kind of a receiver either for a creative idea, like something just pops in their head and they're like, oh, that's a great melody, let me go work on this in the DAW and develop this into something that's like, where the fuck did that idea even come from? And then you're expressing in the same kind of idea that this input into Ableton, throwing something through a bunch of different inputs, really like some sort of chain you developed, and then seeing what comes out on the other side will at least spark something where you're like, oh, I can go and turn this into X, Y, and Z because it's giving me some ideas on that. It's interesting because it makes you think like it's not this process where someone sits down and there's a blank template and then boom, genius just falls on the.
I never think that was the case. Like if you listen to people talk about like the Beatles, like if you listen to them talk about their writing process, they'd just be sitting around like on fucking drugs or not, and just like, fucking around with an electric guitar or acoustic guitar or something, or like, pissing about with like a thumb piano or just something. And then all of a sudden one of them is like, oh, that gives me an idea, It's like they're also reactive artists, I reckon. Like I don't really think creativity is like this one-way street that a lot of people think about it, like, where they're just kind of like, oh, these fucking artist creators like just have this insane ability to just like envision a whole thing and be like, bam, I'm gonna go make that right now, like that's just not how it works, especially for someone who's working at this shit like every day. You can't expect that to happen every day, but you kind of have to work every day. You can't like if you want to be successful and you want to make a living of this stuff, especially if you're working on projects like scoring film, or like working on I don't know, if you're making sample packs even, or if you're like making an album even, like fuck, it would take you so long to make an album if you had to wait around every time for that to happen. Like
sitting there waiting. Yeah,
it would be like impossible, I reckon. Like you get one album done in a lifetime, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that it's funny because I think from a perspective of people starting out, right? People that are getting started in electronic music or really whatever, and they see or listen to these artists who they love, there's this idea that it's like, oh my God, there's genius behind here. This is just this incredible just wealth of inspiration through these tracks, and it's this creative genius or whatever. But it comes down to that process where it's like you got to work every day and you work on it, and then stuff comes out. You work on, you just keep, you kind of use this analogy of this like input output system with Ableton, and stuff comes out that triggers ideas, and that's what develops into the tracks.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think, like I said, I think everyone has always done that. I think like even in the caveman days and stuff, it was probably like that, like they do one thing and they're like, oh, that made a little bit of spark, that gives me an idea. And then they like make a fire, or like, or they're like, oh, you got like this little rock thing and you're holding it in your hand, like jamming it into a fucking tree to try and break the tree open or something like that. They're like, oh, that gives me an idea to like put a handle on it,
Right. Yeah. That's probably how we evolved, like those were the humans that at that stage probably had this evolutionary advantage. So they were mating, and then we're just now the primed to go in and put something in and get some feedback and be like, oh, this is something, and let's go turn it into this thing, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's pretty empirical analysis.
yeah, exactly. We cracked it right there. No, that